You've got some questions, okay, but stay with us, Councillor Gilbertson. We'll come back to you shortly. Please, Mr. Hanson, come on. Just while they're coming up, Councillor Gilbertson, your comments about repetition, the whole family doesn't repeat itself if we get the Rhodes Scholar in.
He's very succinct, Mr. Chair.
Is he? Oh, that's good.
He's well educated and
That's good, thank you. Okay. Good morning, welcome. Just snuck in for a good morning, 1 minute to go. Colleague, please.
So hopefully something infinitely more manageable than climate change. Firstly, I'd just like to introduce Rebecca McKenzie from the property group. Rebecca's working with us on, specifically at the moment, the Rotanifera related project detail, but also has given us some advice just associated with this paper and the uniqueness of the bit of land in Guppy Road. So I thought just in case there was any quite specific questions around status and some of the issues or decisions we're making, that Rebecca can answer those. So I have a couple of images here that may be helpful. Outside that, happy to check.
Just in terms of your, are you a legal person? Is that what we're saying?
I'm a consultant that's associated with a property-based company, and we do have in-house corporate counsel, so we do have in-house legal advice. I myself am not a solicitor, no.
Okay, well, while questions, while we're getting
Didn't want to pass.
Two questions, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and perhaps it does help to relate to refer to the map that we were given, or the aerial view that we were given. My first question is, given that this council has had, and I understand probably still has on its books, a proposal for a significant rebuild at that area, are we retaining enough land to complete the rebuild? And secondly, does it make sense at the time that reserve is being developed that we pull the boundary facing the road back on the regional council land so that we actually get a better road frontage? Because at the moment, that as we approach the bridge, that's quite a untidy area, and a little bit more road reserve on that boundary may actually give an improvement for the future.
Well, I beg to differ. I quite like the look of that big tractor myself. But
Perhaps we'll go to that.
Couple of questions.
Perhaps, sorry, I'll just go back one in terms of. How do we go back? Just one more. Quickly step through these three slides here. So just for councillors' interest, this forms part of a larger tract of land that has a previous river-related status associated with the Tūraku River. So it stems across the expressway up into the Powder Road area. So these are sections of land that we've spoken to you in the past. The purple-related land is land that we currently own and retain, and has use in terms of out-of-river protection for stock management or what have you. The yellow land is the remnants of the original prior catchment board and regional council nursery, which is now the Tariara Reserve, and the red section of land is the remnant part of that land on the expressway side of Guppy Road. So that's the bit of land we're talking about. So perhaps just in terms of Councillor Scott's query, I didn't quite follow the query, but this is the chunk of land in terms of the red outline area. This is a section of road, I think, Rebecca, associated with Napier City Council. We've rationalised our boundaries, acknowledging there is an additional boundary status associated with the expressway section that we occupy at the moment. We've put up a security fence around the periphery of ours associated with security related issues, and we have an expectation of moving that fence back in time if needed, if the four laning of the expressway ever occurs. So we've retained enough land for our interest, and it stems back to the time of looking at this building and perhaps options also looking at being domiciled at Guppy Road. We have excess land associated with that area in terms of the operations group and function at the moment, and also looking at perhaps any expansion opportunities that have been considered over recent years. So we're satisfied that the area we have there is sufficient for what we require at this time. So this stems back to discussions we had in 1995, which was the transfer initially of this section of what was the regional council's nurseries, and the land relates to the fact, and you've still got a section of this stop bank evident on the expressway side. It's the new stop bank was constructed, this then became land protected, and certainly.
I think we'll take questions on the way through. Councillor D.
Yeah, the area up the top, how did you describe that area there?
Yeah, road,
that wedge?
Road reserve.
It's an area of legal road.
Legal road going where?
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
No.
So.
Road reserve coincident with what was the old stop bank.
So that sits within Napier City Council's ownership.
So it's actually vested in some form with Napier City already.
No,
Rebecca, could you actually just talk into the microphone so everyone can hear your answers?
Sorry, and I've got a cold which doesn't help. So it is currently legal road, so it's sitting there, that's vested as
Okay.
legal road in Napier City Council currently.
Okay, that's fine. Secondly, are we actually doing anything about, and I raised this earlier on, I thought it was going to go on an action list, about the visual pollution from the expressway when one looks at the back end of the yard?
It's relevant. That was the question that was raised by Councillor Scott.
I don't think it's made it on the action list, Councillor Dick, and we need
Well-
to get it on the action list.
Well, if we can get it on the action list,
Yeah.
that'll satisfy me.
We could get an answer now, possibly, Mr.
Yeah,
Hanson.
Certainly an option for us. The issue we've had is, in fact, the legal boundary is a fair way back into what is the operations group. The native plantings occurred back on that formal boundary. There is a reasonable exercise associated with shifting quite a substantial security fence because of the security issues we've had.
I make the point that in terms of projecting our corporate image, there is this building which doesn't
Point of
right now portray it very well, but it will when the work's finished. But that does nothing for us.
Yeah, just a basic question. Could you plant the berm that's there now? I mean,
Like I say, an option would be that we plant something around the periphery of what's currently there, acknowledging in time it may be removed, because we would have to physically shift back to what is a boundary that's quite distant. It's 15 or 16 metres. So have something around the edge of what's there.
In terms of any four-laning of the expressway, that's my guess would be 20, 30 years away. But my last question is, I mean, it's a very good use of some land that's no use to us. We can't sell it. Napier City Council can't sell it. But how reasonable were they when it came to extending the sewer line down to the yard?
Very accommodating.
Very accommodating.
We had an issue here, particularly with the washdown facility, that needed to be dealt with. We had limited options, and our only option was to connect to the sewer. So we undertook a joint exercise which extended the sewer from the last of these properties down through this property, and now fully services the operations group, and that was a very favourable position to us.
So they were as generous to us as we're about to be to them.
They were more generous to us than I suppose on the basis no money's changing hands here, and it doesn't have a monetary value to us. But
Oh, that's right, I'm happy.
Ngā whenua Rahui could supply the plants perhaps for the planting.
Sorry,
Councillor
the
McGregor.
This has been maintained and looked after by Napier City since 2005, so there's also been that ongoing commitment of maintenance that hasn't been our cost.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any discretion to have what is our northern boundary, but the southern boundary of the reserve, have that shifted north to give us more room for expansion, or indeed some amenity planting on the sunny side? Are we bound by that existing boundary? There's no discretion for claiming a bit more for our own use?
We certainly could. We made that decision based on, and we actually shifted it by, again, at this scale it's hard, doesn't look as significant as it is, but we actually shifted this fence by a reasonable margin in the process of putting up what's obviously been quite an expensive security fence. So we made that choice at that time. If it was deemed to be necessary, then there would be a not insignificant cost associated with shifting a pretty substantial security fence. So yeah, we at this stage we've surveyed it on that basis, because that's what we believed or deemed to be offering. Until that process is formalised through this, there is the ability to move it. But obviously for a reason and a cost.
Councillor Curtin.
Just on that point, Graham, so you've had a formal survey done on that boundary line
Yes.
indicated?
We've formally surveyed the red area so we could confirm what the actual surveyed areas that we were transferring, acknowledging it was part of a wider
Can I just ask two questions in sequence so we can get to where I'm coming from? The use put to by the Napier City Council is for reserve purposes, is that correct?
Correct.
They're not going to build on there, are they?
No, well, yes and no. It's for local purpose reserve for sport and recreational buildings. So the
Okay.
idea being to supplement the existing Tariha Reserve.
Okay. Is there opportunity for the council at some point in the future to ask for a portion of it back, should we require that? And why I'm asking this question goes to the same question that Councillor Dick and Councillor Scott have raised. The issue is coming up the bridge, having elevation there and looking down. Now, even if you plant the road reserve boundary, you're still looking into a bit of an eyesore. But if you set back, shifted the road reserve boundary substantively into the body of the council section, and then moved the northern council's northern boundary to the north by 20 or 30 metres to accommodate the loss of road reserve area, then we would be in a position to beautify that area to a much greater extent. Would that be correct?
Yes, and probably on the basis at the moment that this boundary has been described, acknowledging we may well lose that. So
yes.
Probably our advice is that we don't think we'd need to push into the Napier City land, acknowledging that if this occurred, there is sufficient land within what we own at the moment. So the question is about whether we would or should do that now.
So
the
I'll rephrase it, Graham. Is there sufficient setback from the road reserve boundary into our site if we were to screen that, would it screen it from an elevated position on the expressway?
If this was put back to that
Yeah,
point
or
there,
further,
would it
or
be-
further.
Oh, further?
Yes.
Well, then you're talking about taking down buildings. We've got permanent infrastructure here that chemical pest sheds and whatever, so
Well, I mean, that's not the end of the world, though, is it? What I'm saying is, are we in a position, or should we be putting ourselves in a position to reserve a portion of the land proposed for the Napier City Council, so that in the event of some opportunity in the future, we can say, well, let's do that, let's acquire that.
I'd suggest that dimension there, just thinking off the top of my head in terms of what that current dimension is, the planting that is actually quite a substantial margin of land. In my opinion, would be considered far enough back to be able to either screen or plant this and
Yep.
therefore
Well, that's
provide that level of
I'll take your advice on that.
So yes, sorry, in answer to your first question, we've considered that total land and area requirements, acknowledge all of these things perhaps occurring at some point in the future, and we believe we can live on the footprint that we've identified. And that was a bigger issue in terms of the cost of the security fencing at 50 odd K.
Or as an alternative, you could have put an attractive billboard on the other side so people looked to the right and to the left.
Well, we've got everyone keeping an eye on us from this point.
I'd like to, yeah.
Any other questions? No other questions? You happy to move?
Yep.
You have a second, Mr. Speaker?
Yeah, just two issues, Mr. Chairman. I think it's good that we can see into that thing from the motorway, because I have a concern that Mr. Hanson might spend his time in a hammock drinking pino coladas, and we can see that he's at work, hard at work when we go past. So, I think we just, the other thing that I just wonder if it's too much haste in this thing that's been going on since 2002. We don't need to rush these things, but apart from that, I think it's very sensible and straightforward, and I recommend it.
Other speakers? Councillor Scott.
Chairman, I support the recommendation. My only concern was that we had allowed for all the foreseeable needs of the future for both the expansion, as has been put to us, for the need to just about double the accommodation there, and to pull back from the road reserve and still have sufficient storage. I hear from Mr. Hanson that has been considered, and therefore I'm happy to support the recommendation.
No other speakers, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Collins brought this